Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week I'll be talking about Akame. Following this season's theme about anime introductions and introductions to different genres, I thought about it, and actually it is the best course of action to actually introduce you to action anime, but action is such a broad genre that I didn't actually have a good point of reference to action anime. So I thought about it, and then I eventually came to the conclusion that Akame is, for the most part, the best introduction I can actually muster right now, because a lot of action anime I would use to introduce the genre I already reviewed in the first season, so I will not redo the review. And also because Akame is such an iconic, let's say, medium to minor anime in general, because it is memorable for a lot of things. If you watch it once, I can guarantee that you will remember it for a whole lot of time. But I will get to that eventually. So first, before I even start, let's go with the disclaimers. The disclaimer that I have already done about the action thing. And now, spoiler alert, as always, I will try not to spoil everything, because this anime really, the best experience is not to be spoiled outright. Although I have to kind of spoil the things that happen for review purposes. I believe that watching it alone, like without the previous knowledge of what will happen, is better, which is my first point, that the first time you watch it, it will be really good. The second time will not be so good, because you already know what will happen, and let's say the magic is not there, because the shock value is not there. That being said, let me start with the stats. So the Akame was originally a manga written by Takahiro and illustrated by Tetsuya Tashiro. The original run was from March 2010 to December 2016. It has 15 volumes. I have not read the manga in a long time, and for this review I will not be reviewing the manga, but from what I remember, it is about 100 something chapters, 120 maybe, 140, I don't actually remember. So, and now for the anime. The anime was done by Studio White Fox and C Station. The music was done by Taku Iwasaki, which notably has done a whole lot of music for the anime industry in general. And the one show he has done music that I have to shout out again, although nobody actually listened to that review, is 0091. The music in that show is awesome. The music in this show is also awesome. This time, outside from the jazz kind of themed, kind of city pop kind of deal, he has done some, let's say, orchestral / opera songs with some rock included, which is really nice. So the anime, the original run was from July 2014 to December 2014. It has 24 episodes, no OVAs. And so now this is the first point of the review. you notice that the original run of the manga was from 2010 to 2016, and the anime was 2014. So this is one of the cases. They're not rare. They are unusual, and at this point in 2023, I think they are mostly extinct. I think, for the most part, you could say Chainsaw Man is coming out, and it has not yet finished, but the first season is only going to partake the first arc, which is actually finished, so there's no problem there. Anyways, that's not the point. The thing is, the ending, let's say from the first 30% of the anime to the end, it has changed from the manga. So I think the author basically gave out what needed to be done, plus the director. I don't actually know how they decided such things, but easy to say, the ending for the manga and the ending for the anime are quite different in some aspects. For instance, right, the things I remember from the manga has, if I'm not mistaken, one or maybe two extra arcs until the end, whereas the anime has one arc, one, let's say, incision in the middle, and then it finishes off. And also a whole lot of happenings, let's say, not that they change order, but they are fairly altered in many ways. That being said, let's get actually to the review, really. This may become a short review, more or less, but we'll see when you get there. So, why did I watch Akame ga Kill? Akame ga Kill is, I think, as I already said, it's a really good first contact with literal actual action anime. I think it encapsulates the whole genre in a lot of ways, and also because it is not only a basic anime in many ways, but also, if you start to actually analyze it, it is a good intermediary to maybe more higher standing in what I would call the more brutal side of the action animes. So, for instance, this may be the gateway to reading Berserk, I would say. That being said, right, so let's talk about the first episode, because the first episode is always done in a way that it has to give out the vibes of the whole show in a single episode, and they also have to really show off what they have, because it is the first point of contact with us audience. And I think for the most part, Akame ga Kill is the best example of giving out the perfect vibes for the show for the most part. And so let's get to it. So for instance, right, before I even start, Akame ga Kill in the title is a play on words, because in Japanese it's Akame ga Kiru. Kiru is the English way to say kill, and also the verb to cut. Akame, which is the titular main protagonist, let's say, she wields a sword, so kill, kiru, cut, you get it. It's a play on words. But again, for the first episode, we first get to meet our point of view as audience. That is Tatsumi, which is the main character in the show. For the most part, Akame is in the title, but Tatsumi is, let's say, our point of contact with her. Much like Snake in Metal Gear Solid 2. But not getting to that. The first episode starts with Tatsumi being a country boy coming to the capital of the empire. And just to give out the setting, right? So it is kind of a fantasy land with guns, somewhat. but most of the combat is done still with melee weapons, and so they have to kill special monsters and whatever. This will eventually, I'll get to that. So the thing is, right, Tatsumi goes into the capital to earn money to send back to his village and meet up with his friends. Two friends from the start. There are these two friends that he has to meet up, and you get to see the first episode that he's pretty not only let's say a country bumpkin, but he's really green, he's really naive, and he has not met a con man before. Let's say he has never been swindled in his whole life. He doesn't know what sarcasm is even. And so let's say his first day in the capital is pretty rough. He tries to enlist himself in the army and gets booted out because he tries to show off. And after that, he gets his money stolen. And basically, that's, for the most part, that's the first episode. There's this also the setting that one guard at some point talks to him about, that actually the whole government in the kingdom, the empire, is corrupt. That being said, right, so you can already guess what's going to happen at this point. We eventually will get to the corruption. But at this point, the first episode, Tatsumi has no money. He got swindled after all. And when he's going to try to sleep on the street, a noble girl comes out and says, "Oh, come to me, to my state, and stay there and whatever." And so he goes there, meets her family and whatever. And until that point, it's all good and fun, right? Until at night, when suddenly the state is attacked by this group called Night Raid, which for this first episode, they are a group of assassins that are, let's say, infatuated with the revolutionary army that opposes the current government. And basically they assassinate high power figures and politicians and rich people and whatever. And so they say it's attacked. Tatsumi tries to defend the girl and whatever. And then there comes the first, let's say, the first twist. And this is the thing about the anime that really the first episode shows really well, is that this anime is pretty gruesome in a lot of ways. It is really, really, really gruesome. So, oh boy, I don't actually think I can talk about it without the YouTube bots and whatever getting this banned. Fuck it. So basically, the thing is, right, so he tries to defend the girl and whatever until this point that they get cornered. And the guys from Night Raid actually corner the girl, and then Tatsumi's like, "Why are you doing this?" And then they kick the door in one of the storerooms, I think they have. And when Tatsumi sees inside, he basically changes from that point on, because he sees, and I can't actually describe the whole scene. And for the most part, the anime has, let's say, the censor limitation of TV, which they actually can't show, but the manga does a way better. Let's say they show way more, because manga has that kind of free pads and this stuff. A whole lot of bodies hanging from the ceiling, people apparently dead from starvation, from torture, and this whole messed up place. And when Tatsumi actually looks inside, there are the two friends that he was awaiting to meet in the city, Yasu and Sayo. Sayo is the girl. One of them dead and one near death. So from this point on, Tatsumi basically turns on the girl. They talk a bit, and then he 180 slashes her to death. And another thing I have to preface: this anime is done in the let's say the Quentin Tarantino school of cinema, which is there's a lot of blood, a lot of blood. But I digress. The thing is, right? So Tatsumi kills the girl. Let's say takes his friend out of the cell he was in, and then in his arms the friend dies. A really painful death. And from this point on, Tatsumi not really willingly, but he kinda is voluntold to join Night Raid, which is this, let's say, terrorist group, the assassin group that is infatuated with the Revolutionary Army. And so that's basically it for the first episode. And from this point on, we get like, I don't actually remember if there are 2 or 3 episodes of basically Free Willy, know the world, know the things around. But let's just say the 4th episode is the first part, which is pretty messed up. But before I even continue, I have to address the let's say the power play in this anime. What is the powers, the whole stack about this fantasy world has to have magic, right? So this in Akame ga Kill they have these, let's say, legendary weapons, more or less, that they call the imperial arms, imperial weapons, imperial relics. I actually remember that. And they actually have the let's say, the story goes that when the first emperor was around, he basically realized, oh yes, I will die someday. And then he got together with the most skilled, the best craftsmen and researchers and whatever of the whole kingdom to make 48 magical weapons. Let's say they don't actually say magical, but special weapons that can have special abilities and whatever. But for some reason, it turns out that 24 of them were lost at some point, and so there are only 24 left. I don't actually remember if this plays a role in the manga. I think that they hard cap it, so there will be only 24 wielders at some point. But in the anime, it doesn't actually happen because, let's just say, they cut out a whole arc, maybe 2, so a whole lot of people don't actually show up. But that's not the point. The thing is, right, so there's imperial relics, they have all shapes and forms, they have all different powers and whatever, and so basically we get to meet from episode 2 to episode, I think it's 4, we get to meet the main crew, Night Raid. And so we get to meet Akame. Akame is basically the most senior of the assassins. She wields the katana Murasame, which has this power of if it cuts you, there is this magical kind of demonic poison that goes inside your body, and you are guaranteed to die in the next like 40 seconds with heart stop. That's basically it. Also, just a quick note, they never actually say that, but all the relics have hidden abilities that are basically if I do this, I will basically die, which actually harkens back to something like this one song from Seafoam Gear until the 2nd season, but that's not the point. The thing is, they have all different abilities, and a hidden ability that basically means that the guy is going to die after they do it. So Akame has the Murasame, which is a katana with the demonic poison. We get to meet Mine, which is the tsundere. She wields a relic called Pumpkin. Pumpkin is basically a rifle, more or less. It's a modular weapon modular firearm, more or less. And it is a really ambiguous kind of thing, because it basically senses when mine is in danger or close to dying and ups the power output. So basically, in a normal state, mine will just use something like a sniper, and whenever she's in danger, she actually can invoke a power of basically laser weapon to disintegrate someone. That's basically it. So there is Lubok. Lubok is this guy which later on we get to know about the past of everyone eventually, but basically Lubok is this. At some point he was born rich. He lived with well off with his family until he met the boss of the Night Raid, which I will talk about next. And so he basically followed her from her tenure, let's say, as an imperial general until she defected to the Revolutionary Army. And so next is the boss. The boss, and Lubok uses, I don't actually remember the cross tails. I think it was the relic he uses. It is basically, he has infinite. In the manga it's infinite. The anime it's not infinite. It comes up. Basically he has this whole yawn of these special wires that actually are fur from a monster. They're basically unbreakable wires, and so something like the monowire from Cyberpunk. I don't actually know. Thing is, he does a whole lot of stuff with it. He does trapping armor and weapons and whatever. Next one. We get to meet the boss. The boss is called Najenda. She was at some point Imperial General, although she defected to the Revolutionary Army after she discovered the corruption inside the government, and is basically the chief of Night Raid. She doesn't actually go on missions for like beating people up, but for assassinations also. But she's the boss. Eventually, she gets to actually fight, although she cannot fight because they don't actually talk about this in the anime. I don't actually remember if they mentioned this in the manga, but she's after she suffered, I don't actually remember if it was an incident or whatever. She lost an arm, and basically she does not have the fitness anymore to actual combat. She doesn't have at the beginning a relic. Later on it changes. Next one is Shelly. Shelly in the anime is not really well presented, I don't think, because the anime is really tight with his runtime, and they really don't actually develop many things. But Shelly is basically an airhead that the only thing she does right is killing. She's clumsy and basically, again, an airhead, but when it comes down to killing, she does it really well. And the last person is, let's say, the most important one is Burato or Bullet. I don't actually know how they say this in English, which is an ex-soldier for the army also, but not related to Najenda. He basically is a buff dude, and then they actually make a lot of jokes about it, but he's gay. And that comes up a lot, but that the anime, it is not really shown off. It's just something to poke fun at. And his relic is called Incursio. Incursio is basically the sword that summons a set of armor made from the remains of a legendary monster from long ago, and it can turn invisible and summon an extra weapon and a whole lot of stuff. So basically those are the main characters that we get to meet. So now I can start talking about what happens in the anime. So from episode 2 to episode 3, I think basically nothing really happens. The thing is, Tatsumi is basically integrating the group, so we get to meet everyone, and basically he gets to stop being green, stop being naive, and actually knowing people, living in the capital and whatever. And the thing about the first 3 episodes is that it is mostly wholesome and shows off a good, I would say, a good balance of action, banter between the characters, and the style of comedy the anime goes to, which is pretty okay. Although, sometimes it's more funny, sometimes it's more goofy, sometimes it's more pretty deadpan jokes, but for the most part, it's pretty good. Episode 4, though, and this is why I said Shelley is not well introduced. I think it's episode 4. Don't quote me on that. I may be wrong on the number. She dies, and yeah, that's basically it. So at some point, they are running into a mission and doing stuff until they. Shelley and mine are ambushed by another relic wielder from at that point I think she was at the police, Seiryu, and Seiryu wields she will become more important later, so I better introduce her now. Seiryu is I think it's the only character with a surname which I don't actually remember because her surname is ginormous, but the thing is, she has this really twisted notion about justice and what's right, what's wrong. She is really twisted, and she's the one character from the whole anime, and this is just her. She actually has the evil guy look, that Joker kind of thing. I can't actually explain what it is. You have to see to believe it, but she's the only one which has this twisted evil guy villain face. But she thinks she's doing the right stuff, and she's maniacal about it. So she goes through body modifications to basically insert guns and weapons in her arms. So basically she cuts out her arms and basically implants guns and a lot of other stuff in her arms. At some point it becomes kind of goofy because she cut that. I will talk about the relic first because it's better to explain. So her relic is one of the kind of, they call the living relic. It is basically they say it's living. It's more or less a cyborg, and her, let's say, cyborg, heavy quotes on that, is called Koro. It is a little dog, which is a pretty cute mascot at first, but then when it attacks, it can expand his body. So from even growing arms, it has no arms at the start on his normal, let's say, standby form. But when attacking, he can become big and buff, have arms, and one of the things they do to really stylize the threat, the menacing style, is the fact that it has the, let's say, shark tooth, and can actually gobble up anything really big. So it basically is it can basically devour anyone. That's basically it. The thing is, what I was trying to say about Seiryu's implants is that to change between weapons, she actually has Koro bite her arm off to change weapons. And I don't actually know, and it never really comes up the explanation of why, but you gotta wonder, the fucking thing just devours her arm again, which at that point is mechanical, so she doesn't actually feel any pain, but she goes through a lot of weapons and a lot of arms, and you just, what the hell? Anyways, that's not the point. The thing is, in episode 4, I think it's episode 4, Koro, they are ambushed by Seryu, and then after they're ambushed, they kind of will get away, but Mind gets in danger. Shere goes to save her, and 1 second after saving her, Shere takes a bullet to the stomach. Koro wars half of her, and basically to say, Shere sacrifices herself to make Mind escape, and so there's the first death. And in the anime, I would say it's not really shocking at this point, because the manga also does this. This also happens in the manga, but I think the introduction in the manga is really better because it has more time to develop the character and whatever. Shelly is not really developed at that point. Her backstory is really not great, but I don't know. It's not really that shocking, but it's kind of shocking. And this is the part where the anime kind of starts to pick up the pace. One of the things I have to say about this anime is that it is really rushed. If you blink it, you'll miss it. The whole thing is really rushed. They don't stop the plot at any point. There's no filler at all. It is always something to do with the revolution that is coming, with the resistance of the empire and whatever. And it goes, never stops. Really, it is really rushed, because, and I don't actually know why, but I don't know if they needed to cram a lot of stuff. I don't actually remember the manga, so I can't really say if they crammed a lot of stuff, they cut a lot of stuff. Anyways, that's not the point. The thing is, next thing, right? So they get back to the HQ. Everybody's feeling bad because Shelly's died and whatever. And so we go a few episodes with Tatsumi going. Tatsumi at this point is the main character. We get that, and he's going through a whole lot of, not only, it's not really trauma. It is, he's trying to cope with the loss of his two friends and now Shelly, which at this point was emotional hand to help him. And basically the thing that happens is that he starts to really train hard and whatever. And from this point on, episode 8, a whole lot of stuff happens. We get introduced to what will be the, let's say, not the main antagonist, but the better antagonist, more or less, of the whole show. That is General S. Death. General S. Death is born sadist that was Nagenda's partner when she was a general, and she's basically not the Joker, but she doesn't give a fuck. The only thing she wants to do is to kill people, and she's basically nuts. And she's the most powerful relic wielder in the whole show. That is not me saying, they say this from the start, and basically she's immortal. The thing is, right, so her power is that she basically she drank from the actual demon blood, and she now controls ice. Eventually that culminates in her hidden ability, which actually freezes time, which is pretty nuts when you think about it. But the thing is, right, so we get introduced to her, and then we get introduced to her servants. There are 3 guys. I don't actually remember their names, but simple to say, at some point Borato and Tatsumi are sent to a mission that the 3 guys are there, and shit happens. And although Tatsumi comes out on top, Borato dies. And from this point on, I can actually say, from this point on, the anime goes a different direction from the manga. The manga develops a whole lot of more stuff, way different from the anime. The anime, at this point on, they kind of do some things that actually happen in the manga, but not everything. They adapt a whole lot of stuff. They cut a lot of stuff. I don't actually know if they inputted something. They more or less, right? So they adapted it. So they cut something off to put something in. But I don't actually know if they added something that the manga does not show. But anyways, that's not the point. The thing is, Boruto dies and passes on Incursio to Tatsumi. And that's basically where the real anime begins. When Tatsumi actually becomes the wielder of Incursio, starts to train to use it better, because apparently using relic actually strains your body in more ways than physical and mental. In the anime, it doesn't actually show much of it. In the manga, is really more pronounced, let's say. But that's not the point. How do I even continue from this? So, from this point on, I cannot actually tell much about the story without messing up the experience of watching it, really, for someone that has not watched it yet. But the thing is, right, so let's just get to the part of where I review the anime, really. So what do I think about Akame ga Kill? What do I think? I think it's a really good anime. When you are starting out, I think it's really an incentive to actually watch more anime like this. It is well rounded. It has good humor, sometimes jokes. The comedic relief is done well. It is edgy when it needs to be edgy. It is wholesome when it needs to be wholesome. There is two, let's say, threads of, maybe three if you consider it, threads of romance, although they are not really explored at all in the anime specifically. In the manga, they are kinda, but not really. But the anime itself, not really explored, although they are there, which is a plus. For the most part, the anime is pretty good, but as I said, and this is for me a problem, I don't actually like pacing done like this, because I think it lacks showing off the characters. I think not many, but all the characters are not really developed. Tatsumi goes through some changes sometimes that are just something happens off-screen time and then he changes. This off-screen time is something that I wish they developed more, because there's not the confrontation with the trauma, let's say the problem, but it is all done off-screen, which is really jarring to me. But still, the anime shows off really nice story, really nice visuals. The animation is pretty fluid, although you can clearly see when they cut corners. The action scenes are really well choreographed. I don't actually know how to say this in English, but it is really well done. Although, again, the animation is not really great, it is serviceable. The music is awesome. I don't actually vibe with this kind of music, but it is pretty good. It is a workable 7-8 in general, because it's just well done. I give it extra points for being well done, although it's not for my taste, let's say. And that's more or less it. That's basically it. The anime is pretty good. The story that it tells is pretty good. I don't actually want to continue from this point on, because the sentimental weight of the whole story, of the whole things that happen, is better. It's better if you just watch it. So that's basically it. So if you like what I do, if you like the show, if you like to listen what I have to say, please like, please share, please subscribe depending on the platform you're in. Please join the Discord. I hope you liked. Thank you for listening, and I hope you stick around for the next one. Bye.